Hi there. I'm now going to do a couple of videos. This is the first of two about refining commercial mass-produced bonsai that are exported by the million from China and Japan. So many nurseries and garden centers sell them as they are. This is typical of the kind of thing that you get sold in commercial nurseries, both bonsai nurseries and other garden centers and nurseries. We buy them in, but we refine them. So for this sort of material, although we sell them as they are, many people who have more knowledge about bonsai can create really beautiful things from this. And I will show you how you can improve on these trees. These are Chinese junipers, and the variety is Kisu. And this is the Buxus harlandii, which comes from China. They're quite old trees, got beautiful gnarled old bark. So let's see what we can make out of this. But today, for this video, I'm going to show you how to do the junipers first, and then the second part will be with the Buxus harlandii. So here we are. These are typical Chinese junipers, which are wired in a very nice S shape, and creating these nice S bends on the trunk takes quite a few years. I would say that these trees are at least about 7 to 8 years old from cuttings, and they've been wired when they were young to give it that S shape. But as you can see, there is no form or detail in it. Well, many people will be quite happy to have these as a bonsai, but there is always scope for improving it. So I will show you how we go about doing this. I've got 4 of these plants, and as you know, I work fairly fast, and I will try and complete these in as quick a time as possible. Some of you have told me on the videos that if I say I can do it in 3 minutes, I took more than 3 minutes. If I didn't talk so much on the video, I could probably do it in that time, but that would defeat the purpose because I'm here to explain to you what I'm doing. Let me begin by explaining a little more. You may have noticed that we have these crazy contraptions, which are my turntables. I have 3 turntables here. There's this one, this one, and this one, and they're all made from old office chairs. When I used to work up in London, I used to pass these skips where they threw all the old office furniture into the skips. And I used to put on a brave face and collect these dumped chairs, rip the top off, and just carry the base of the chair back home and make them into these turntables. So this turntable is more than 35 years old. It's a very old office chair base, and I've made them into this turntable by just screwing a piece of ply on it. You notice that I have them in 3 different heights. So depending on how big the tree is, I will use a different size turntable. So this very low one I would use for a taller tree. Then I have a medium one, I have this high turntable. And because this is a small tree, I don't want to be crouching down. So I'm going to use this high turntable to show you what I'm doing. Right, I'll begin with the easiest one. Now this easy one has quite a distinctive S bend to it. So this is a simple one. So what goes through my mind is to find the front or the back of the tree. So let me turn it around, and you can see this side is like this. The S bend is quite visible, but the tree is leaning away that side. So this wouldn't be a good front. This would be a better front because it is leaning slightly towards you. So that's going to be the leader. And these 2 branches are very convenient for making the first branch. Okay, so let's clear the trunk. That's the first thing I will do. I will clear the trunk of anything that shouldn't be there. Keep the trunk clean and clear, and just concentrate on the main branch. Some of you more advanced and clever bonsai people will say, why do you want to keep such low branches? and they are what we call bar branches, a handlebar branch. I'm keeping these for two reasons. I want to make this a fuller looking tree, and also by keeping these low branches, they act as a sort of sacrificial branch, and by keeping it there, it'll help to thicken this part of the trunk quicker than if I had removed it. So I will keep it. You can always remove it at a later date. So let's begin by wiring those two, and I will choose 2 bits of wire. I never throw away scrap wire. Whenever I do wiring and there are offcuts, I always keep it, so there's no point in wasting it. So these are odd scraps of wire, and this gauge that I'm using is 1.5 millimeter. Many people ask me, why do you use this grade instead of another grade, and how do you know what grade to use? A lot of it is common sense, and of course you have to try it. If it doesn't hold, if it's too thin, then go for a slightly thicker one. So that's the way I decide. But if I were to wire these 2 thin branches, I'm not going to use something like that, as thick as that. It's stupid to use that. So as I say, a lot of it is common sense. There's no secret to it. And now we've got to decide which will be the next branch. Okay, we've got those 2 branches in place. And as you can see, the first 2 branches are like the arms of a person. We always say that in bonsai, you're welcoming someone. So if you stretch your arms like this, they are at this sort of angle, not turned back like in flight. So they're forward, so they're like this. So the first 2 branches are placed in this position. Then the next one, this one is a bit too low, but I can put that one at the back and see how that looks. I want to create space between branches, so I can either keep those 2, but as I say, this one in the front is too close to this branch. So this branch is there, but how do I wire this branch? As I've repeatedly told you, we always use the 2 branch principle, where we wire 2 branches with 1 piece of wire. Now this branch is on its own, and the next adjacent branch is very high up. So to overcome that, I will link it to a branch that is already wired. I link it to this one which I've already wired, and then take it to the next branch. You notice that I could have taken it from the front, so you can do that and then go to that branch, but I prefer to go around the back because this is the front of the tree. I don't want to clutter the front with all sorts of wire. So it's always good practice when you wire to hide the wire as much as possible and still keep it neat. So I've avoided crossing from the front, and then I go to the next branch. So this is really a lesson in wiring. So I put it slightly to the back so that it's not directly above this. And then we will go further up to see what we can make of that. And I noticed that this tree has been wired very tight, so that S-bend is very tight over there. In fact, I should really take the tree higher up. So I might still be able to do that. Okay, now this is one here. Is a branch on the inside that's doing nothing, so I'll take that out, and then I want to stretch this higher up to give the S shape more definition. So I'm going to do like a 2 branch principle and wire this branch with this one to get the apex showing more clearly. So I'm going to use a slightly thicker piece of wire. This is 2 millimeter wire. So I'm going to link it to a fairly thick branch there. So I'm going to take it all the way up this branch, which can act as the leader. so go around it. And now once the wire is put on, we can take it up like this so that we get a slightly taller tree. So we've got the wire around one of these branches, so that can be taken out that way. And it's getting a bit congested here. So I'm using the previous leader of the tree, which was this, as a side branch. So I'm going to wire these two together. And there is an inside branch as well. This is an inside branch, can you see? On the inside of the curve. It's almost like an armpit, so we don't want that. Keep it clear, so get a shot of that. So show the trunk line clearly. Remember that when you make a bonsai, it's very important to show the trunk. Once you can show the trunk, the tree will begin to look like a tree. If it's just a lot of leaves and foliage, the plant will look like a bush and not look like a bonsai. So now I've reverted to 1 millimeter wire because it's a very thin branch. And then I'm going to take this one out. Very thin wires, I don't mind using my scissors, although that is bad practice. Anything hanging down, you can remove. And these tips, which are the growing tips, I go in there and trim it like that. So I've created that shape. And now these branches are too young to wire, but I've created the basic shape. So you can see this is a classic S shape. So I've refined that tree so you can see that shape. So you see the difference between the two. So I'm going to go through each one of them because every tree is different. Now let's look at this one. Now this is a very congested tree as well. So the first thing I do is to find the front of the tree. So this is one side which has a lot of foliage. So if it has a lot of branches and foliage at the back, that almost instantly tells me that is going to be the back of the tree. And this side, which is more open, has more scope for being the front. So it's got a reasonable shape, S bend, but it gets lost over here. The grower who produced these trees cut the top off, which I wouldn't have done, but I can pull this branch up and make that the S. So that's what I'm going to do. Anything that grows on the inside, as you can see here, the inside ones, what we call the ones growing under the armpit, we take out. We don't want those. And then we find branches in the right position. Now, on this elbow, there should be a branch. There's a juvenile branch here, hasn't fully grown. I will let that grow because when that grows, it would make a nice branch coming that way, but I won't do anything to that, so I won't remove that. So the first two branches are these two. So let's wire these two and see what we get. Wire these two branches. Trees of this size are known in the bonsai world as shohin bonsai. It's a Japanese term meaning small bonsai. So shohin is a class of bonsai usually around 6 or 7 inches high. It's tending to spring up, so I put another piece of wire to extend it. It's all very healthy trees, so there's a lot of foliage. that's the extending branch. Anything hanging down we get rid of. All these little small branches which are clouding the trunk I will take off. And then the next branch, luckily, is growing in right at the end of the elbow, which is the correct position. So that's going to be a nice branch. So I'm going to wire these two. So I've got that shape. Now, because it didn't have a very clear apex, I'm going to take this side branch. You see where they chopped it? They shouldn't have chopped it there. So I will take this up this way and make that the leader. So I'm going to join this and this. So let us use, this is 2mm wire. I think 2mm wire will do it. So you notice that I'm always wiring 2 branches with 1 piece of wire. This is absolutely fundamental. If you don't wish to remember anything else about wiring, just remember this. 2 branches with 1 piece of wire. I don't like to say that that's a rule, but it's virtually a rule. If you follow that, you can't go wrong. So I've again made that very distinctive S shape. So again, I've refined that tree. So if you had the time, you can wire these flat to make them the pads, but the basic shape is there. And in a year's time, it will thicken at least 50%. And if you want to grow it really vigorously, put it in a slightly larger pot. It's not pot bound, but the roots are very healthy, so a slightly bigger pot can make the tree grow faster and thicken faster. So that's the second one. I'm going to go through several just to reinforce the learning process. Again, you see, this is a nothing tree. Look at it. Once you wire it, it's like this. If you don't wire it and don't refine it, it's like that. So which is better? Clearly this is better. So it's worth taking your time to do this. And since bonsai is a hobby, learning to do this gives immense satisfaction. So let us look at this again and see what we can make out of this. So this is more open. So this is potentially the front. This has got more branches at the back, so I wouldn't say that this is going to be the front. So let's concentrate on this one as the front. Don't forget, if you want to lean, you can always tilt the tree. How you pot it can alter the front or back. So let's look at where the branches are. So all these little ones, they're doing nothing. They're just clouding the trunk. So I will just rub them off. You don't even have to cut it. You can rub them off. Little shoots like this can be used for making cuttings. That's if you wish to make cuttings, so even little ones like this can strike as cuttings. Now there's a branch here. I've got to decide whether to use it or not. I don't think it's doing much. It's also on the inside, so I will take that off. I can show the trunk much more. So this is the first major branch. There's another inside branch there. See over here, see it's tucked away there. I could bring it around this way if I wish, but I don't think I will use it. So I'm in a bit of a dilemma. So let's get rid of it. This would make an ideal cutting. See, that is an ideal cutting for making a new tree. So I've cleared the trunk. So you can see the beautiful S shape there. So do I use this or not? No, let's get rid of it. I'm conscious of not getting carried away, because if you get carried away you will end up with nothing. But I still have enough to work on. So this is going to be a nice sweeping branch like this. So I will concentrate on this branch, and I've got this branch, so I'll wire these two together. So I'm going to use 1.5 millimeter wire. Always cut enough wire that you will need. Don't wire with a whole coil dangling around your face. I usually can estimate the exact length of wire I need without wasting it. That comes with doing it a lot. So I have a long sweeping branch, so that would be quite a nice style. And then this I can make like a nice head. Now, because this is quite a thick branch and it matches the leading shoot, which is the apex, I will wire to the apex and see if I can create more shape with the apex. So I'm using the 2-branch principle, but using one branch and the main trunk as the second branch. So you're still enforcing the 2-branch principle all the time. And I think that head is quite full. I don't need to wire more. The ends you can trim back. These long shoots you can trim back. Just try and go into the wood and cut it like that. Never just shear across, just find the wood where it starts and cut it like that. So this one is different style with a long sweeping branch, so that's tidied that tree up. So that's number 3. And then I have a slightly larger one here. This again is very blobby. So again, you see the finished article and the uncleared one. You see the big difference. So it's worth spending some time to refine it to get a better shape. Now, if we look at this one, it's been wired into an S shape, but the apex has come this way. So it's almost like falling down, going nowhere. So I need to take the apex upwards like that before it begins to look more like a proper bonsai. I don't want to chop it here and keep it a low tree, but it's a shame to waste this. So I'm going to wire this to the top to give more of a pronounced S shape. So to do that, I'm going to use slightly thicker wire. So I'm going to use, I think this is 3 millimeter wire. So I'm going to pull this up like this. So luckily I've got quite a thick branch here, and this thick branch is going to be the anchor for the apex. So the 2-branch principle again. I'm using this thick branch as one branch and the apex as the other branch. It's so congested that I'm having difficulty finding where the branch is. When these trees are grown, they simply wire the young cuttings with a piece of wire and twist it in a random S form, and they're just allowed to grow. Of course, being at random, you sometimes get very interesting shapes, but you can also get very weird and unusable shapes. Okay, I've got that right grid of wire, so I'm pulling it upwards so that it doesn't look as if it's just flattened. So I pull that right up, so what was leaning horizontally has gone upwards like that. So you can see I've changed the shape with just using one piece of wire. There's a lot of congestion here, which is interesting, but I think we may have to get rid of some of this congestion and show some of the nice trunk. This is a nice mature branch, but I think it'll have to go. Remember that to be successful in your bonsai, you've got to be prepared to cut. There's a branch there, I think there's too much there. Take that off. Take that off. Now that branch which was cut off is shooting straight up. I can probably make a bit of driftwood there. So I won't cut it off completely. I'll just remove the bark. But you've got two branches there which I can wire. So I can use the gin pliers. Crush the bark. So that's a rudimentary bit of driftwood. Any unwanted branch you can always make into driftwood. You can refine it in the space of 5 or 10 seconds. I'm not going to refine it, but just to show you the principle. And then these two I can wire flat to give some depth as a side branch and a little back branch. So I will wire these two. Chinese junipers, by the way, are very fashionable at the moment, so they're highly sought after trees. Now this at the top, these branches are not mature enough. You can see I can wire them, but I would prefer to leave them to grow a little longer before I wire them in position. But I have now changed the shape into a more interesting upright shape. Now this branch has not been wired. I've got to determine which is the front and which is the back of the tree. The S is there. I can wire it this way, but I think it's almost there. I don't need to fuss too much. Wire it a little bit back, and when you come to repotting it, you can change it slightly. So this is how we refine these small commercial junipers. I will give you just a taster of what I will do on another video session. These are also Chinese junipers. You see the difference in size? Big difference in size. So there's a lot of branches to wire, and I don't think I can do this in 3 minutes. It'll probably take the best part of maybe 20 minutes or more to refine this. So I'll keep this for another occasion. But all these trees, many people will give the right arm for it and say that they're nice bonsai, but until they're refined, they don't look their best. So there's always scope for refining this. So I hope you enjoyed this little video about doing these small junipers.